When you look in the mirror, do you speak kindly to yourself, or do you say negative things about yourself, your reflection? Because I used to speak very negatively toward myself or even at myself when I looked in the mirror, and that led to so much unhappiness and so much dysfunction in my life. And I just want to share what I did to correct that, really. It's quite simple. Again, not easy, but simple. I started practicing speaking kindly to myself in the mirror. I would go in front of the mirror and address myself by my name and start listing the things that I felt good about myself. And in the beginning, I have to be honest, it wasn't so much that I was lying, but I took on a sort of fake it till you make it mentality with this, because at the time when I started, I didn't feel those things fully, but I wanted to. I wanted to be a person that felt that overwhelming sense of self-love because I knew how it would benefit me. And because I was not there yet, I had to practice and keep practicing. And the reason I share this is because when I was in that dark place where I was not speaking kindly to myself, I acted out in ways that now in retrospect I see make perfect sense, because those dysfunctional behaviors and bad habits and those vices that I used to rely on as a crutch to manage my life, those coping mechanisms, unhealthy coping mechanisms that I was addicted to, those reflected the way I felt about myself. So in other words, I felt badly about myself, so then I acted horribly towards myself in doing these dysfunctional things, and then that bad behavior made me feel, of course, more unworthy and more disgusted with myself and displeased with myself, and then that perpetuated the negative self-talk. So you can see how it's a circle of darkness, and that perpetuated my addictive behaviors that were really hindering my growth as a person. And this affected all areas of my life, but it mostly affected the things that I do on a daily basis, because that's how human behavior is. I mean, we notice it in our overall functioning as a human being. So just things like my sleep, my eating habits, my mood, my interaction with my loved ones all suffered greatly, immensely. And most of all, my attitude towards myself, my spirituality, the thing that I hold most sacred now, that suffered a great deal because I was suffering. And I would say the only way out, at least for me, the only way out of that was, again, going in front of the mirror and practicing self-love, because self-love is not easy for me. Maybe it comes easily to other people. I don't know, because I'm not other people, but it didn't come easily to me. I had a long list of things I could criticize myself about and judge myself over, most of them in a negative way. And then I would have a short list of things that I felt good about myself. And only when my dearest loved ones would remind me of the things that I have to feel good about myself would I even consider that they would be speaking the truth to me, which is very unfortunate. So you can see how feeling that way about myself would make me feel inadequate and have poor self-esteem and be insecure. So I wanted to correct that, and I did read a book, Louise Hay's Mirror Work. So I would recommend that book. That book is great. It's kind of a workbook of a guided mirror work of what the title implies. And so I definitely utilized that. And when I finished that, I continued doing it myself in my own way, as I imagine other people would do after reading a book like that. You kind of adopt your own approach and what's comfortable and sustainable for you. So that's what I have done. And I think, I'm human. So on some days, well, on many days, not every day, thankfully, but on many days, I still feel bad about myself in some way or another, and I judge myself harshly, perhaps too harshly, and perhaps to the degree that it impedes my functioning, which is unfortunate. But the key now is that I am much more self-aware in that respect, and I catch myself, and I go, and this sounds silly, but when I catch myself, I will find the nearest mirror. And I actually carry a little compact mirror in my purse. This is how serious I am about this. I've started carrying a little compact mirror in my purse, so if I'm in my car, I can do it in my car. I correct it immediately. I don't wait, and I don't postpone that, because it's so important to me to correct that so that I don't perpetuate that. And the reason it's so important, the foremost reason it's so important, is so that I don't slip back into those old behaviors that don't serve me, that sabotage me and negate any progress I've made thus far. I don't want to go back to that place, and I don't want to revisit, certainly, any of those bad addictive behaviors that I was so fixated and dependent on. I was a codependent person, except instead of being in a relationship, I was in a relationship with my addiction. And that's perhaps the most horrible and traumatic of all, because it's self-created, right? And it's also self-correctable, but it takes a great deal of fortitude from within, and it takes a great deal of commitment and willingness and readiness. I had to be ready. For years, if I'm being honest, for years, I wasn't ready to face myself in the mirror, quite literally. And again, that perpetuated my sickness. So I think human beings, we're all sick in some way. We're all diseased, We're all diseased, diseased in some fashion, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritually, or all of the above in some cases. And what I want for each of you watching this, in the same way that I wanted it for myself, I want each person and myself to realize their fullest potential, their fullest beingness of a human on this earth, in this life. Life is so precious, and we only have one physical life on this earth, and it's our duty to protect it and to improve when we can improve. And self-awareness, mindfulness is my passion. I try my best each day to be better than I was yesterday, and I try tomorrow to be better than I am going to be today. And I think that's the only thing I can expect of myself. Otherwise, I tend toward anxiety when I have expectations. So in my maturity, I've learned also to let go of that as well. And that has been tremendously freeing, and also has contributed to my recovery too, is letting go in the literal sense of things, but also just, I think, emotionally and mentally letting go of things, not resisting. I am a huge practitioner of non-resistance. I feel my feelings, I observe myself, and I try to be open and receiving of whatever is, even if something is horrible. I try and receive that and examine my emotions rather than judge them. So maybe that was helpful for someone watching this. As always, this channel is just kind of for me to share my thoughts. So that's what I have done right now. That's what was on my mind. If you have a comment, tell me anything about yourself. Tell me how you're doing today. I'd like to know. And see you next time.